Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone. I am Susanna Lax. I am the chair of the Trustees Council of Penn Women. It is unbelievably wonderful to see all of the female athletes and coaches here helping us celebrate our 20th anniversary and the 35th anniversary of Title IX. It is nothing short of incredible. We ought to do this all the time. So it was great to get a chance to talk with some of you about your seasons and about what brought you to Penn. And we're interested in following your careers. And while you're here at Penn, if there's anything that we can do for you at the Trustees Council in the way of athletics, please let us know. Check out our website. It is my pleasure now to introduce Leslie Myers, who is a member of the Trustees Council and one of the co-chairs of our newly formed Athletics Committee, and Mary DeStanislao, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Mary, who is one of the Associate Athletic Directors, also an alum from the Graduate School of Education. Leslie is obviously an alum and a member of our group and was on the tennis team while she was here at Penn. So without further ado, Leslie and Mary.
I am Mary DeStanislao. I think most of the people in this room know who I am. But for the rest of you, thank you so very much for the interest that you've taken in athletics and the interest that you've taken in these young women. And I hope that today is just the beginning of what they come to understand is a long history, and for some, a long, hard road to get where they are now. But they're in a wonderful place here at Penn, and I just want to take a moment to let you know just how good a place we're in. First, you should all know that each one of our women's teams finished in higher than fourth, in the fourth or higher in the league this year, so in the top half of the league. And just by way of highlights, our lacrosse team is off to its best start ever. It's currently ranked 6th in the nation. You know, we have to do all these things, but they are in the driver's seat right now in the league. If you are around this weekend, they have a big match against Dartmouth. Softball in the house. They're going to, at the end. They're off to their best start ever, and their 18 wins at this point equals their best start ever, and they've still got more games to go. At 9-3, they have, well, again, at 9-3, they have a good shot in terms of the league. I used to be a coach, can you tell? Our tennis team, currently ranked 51st in the country, are not here, but they're off to Harvard for a very, very important match. They have excellent pre-conference start, and they too are in very good shape in the Ivy League right now. Soccer. Why don't we wait until the end, and then you can all go crazy. Soccer in the house, always challenges for the Ivy title. They're a young team right now, but they had 4 All-Ivy players this season. Squash, we have a few of them in the house. This is a program on the rise. Their 10-2 finish this year was good for 2nd in the Ivy League and 3rd in the nation. We have 3 All-Americans, and I think they're all here. Women's basketball, also a program on the rise. They were 7-7 in a very competitive Ivy League, and we have 2 All-Ivy players this year. Swimming at 12-4 had their best dual meet record ever, and they had their highest Ivy finish ever this year. So they're definitely on the rise. They set 7 school records this year. Track. They can't help themselves. Track and cross country has a lot to be proud of. In distance, Stacy Kim went to nationals. Indoor track finished 3rd, but within a hair's breadth of 2nd in indoor HEPS. And with the outdoor season just underway, they were 2nd in HEPS, outdoor HEPS, which is the Ivy League championship. And with the outdoor season just underway, we've got a lot to be excited about. Volleyball here. They have the strangest traditions. They clap for good or ill. At every point, win, lose, they clap. So I'm not surprised. They're making these noises. They're a young team, also a very young team. They came on strong after a slow start and finished fourth in the league. They had 2 All-Ivy selections. Field hockey started out slow, finished very strong in the league, tied for second. They had 3 All-Ivy players. Fencing, always a very strong squad, had a gold medal. The women's foil squad had a gold medal at intercollegiate fencing championships. The Sabre were silver medalists. Abby Emerson was 6th place at the NCAA championships and a second-team All-American. There were 5 All-Ivy on the fencing team. Golf is a young program and a very young team. They play in a lot of multi-team tournaments, but so far this season they've had a number of very strong finishes. Gymnastics won the Ivy Classic and finished second at ECAC. This is a very strong program for us. And finally, another program that's strong in the house, rowing. Off to an excellent start so far. The varsity have already registered 2 wins and a very strong second place finish. We have a new staff and a new vitality on the team. I'm so proud of all of you, and I'm so thankful for the rest of you, for all of your support. And I'll turn it over to my friend Leslie.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming too, and I just wanted to quickly ask all the student athletes if you could just please rise. We'd love to recognize all of you for being here. Really. To mention that some of us TCPW members, as you've heard, were past athletes as well, and we want to make sure that we recognize you. So if you were an athlete, can you please rise? And with that, I guess I'll pass it back to you, Susanna. Please.
I know we asked the female athletes to rise. Would the coaches like to rise? We'll give the coaches a round of applause. Terrific. I thank you, Mary and Leslie. I just wanted to add something. Helen Peters sent me an email. She's one of our members and parent of a Penn athlete, and couldn't be here today. She's one of the co-chairs of our athletics committee. And I know most of you may know this because you probably read it in the DP, but Penn just announced a $1.5 million gift as an endowment for the head women's lacrosse coach, Corinne Brower. This gift makes Penn the second Ivy behind Yale to have an endowed women's lacrosse coach, and surprisingly the first Ivy to have endowed both men's and women's lacrosse. So I think it's quite extraordinary. Apparently it was an anonymous former Penn's men's lacrosse player with 3 daughters who have played lacrosse. So I think it's terrific, and hopefully more to come for Penn athletics. So now we're going to get to another part of our program. We're going to have, it's just my pleasure, we're going to have a speaker now who is one of my closest and dearest friends, certainly my closest friend while I was at Penn here in the 70s, Ellie Daniel. Ellie graduated from Penn in 1974 and was inducted in 1996 in the inaugural class of the Penn Sports Hall of Fame. Ellie is now a deputy district attorney in Los Angeles County and has been for over 16 years. But her claim to fame of interest to this group assembled today as we celebrate the 35th anniversary of Title IX is Ellie is the recipient of 4 Olympic medals, including gold, and 9 times world record holder in competitive swimming. She was a member of 3 USA Olympic teams. Mexico City, which was in 1968, an athlete participant on the swim team. Munich, Germany, 1972, athlete participant and women's swim team tri-captain. And in Montreal, Canada in 1976, she was a USA team administrator and athlete liaison representative. Ellie's won, in her Olympic history, 1 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronze in these games. She broke a world record and she was a butterflyer, I should add. Broke the world record in 68 and in 72. Am I right, Ellie? Yeah. Oh, that's what, I'm trying to get all of her accomplishments down here in a very quick time. And she also holds 9 world records: the 200 meters butterfly, 4 and 400 meters medley relay 5. And it's just an amazing, amazing history, and she's dedicated herself to public service in LA County. We miss her here in Philadelphia. It's always her pleasure to come back to Philadelphia to visit, and especially to come to Penn. Ellie has also been a motivational and inspirational speaker to many athletes just like yourself. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Ellie Daniel.
Madam Council Chair, Susanna, my real good friend from Philadelphia, Trustees Council of Penn Women, and distinguished guests. It's wonderful to see all of you here. I'm really honored to be here to speak. In 1968, can you believe it, as a young swimmer, I won an Olympic gold medal in the Mexico City Olympic Games. My path to this gold medal and to 3 other Olympic medals all began at the age of 9 when I took Red Cross beginning swimming lessons 5 times. Now, I know you're asking yourselves, why did I take Red Cross swimming lessons 5 times? Well, because I flunked it 4 times. And this future winner of 4 Olympic medals, me, yes, I flunked beginning swimming lesson 4 times. So, did I finally pass on the 5th attempt, or did the instructors just give me the certificate because they were tired of seeing me? No, I finally passed. And the moral of the story is, what is the moral? It's never give up. And this is the beginning of my swimming career. Now, at 13, I stopped at my local grocery store in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, and I bought 1 piece of Bazooka Joe bubblegum. This is a single piece. And inside was a fortune. Now, I have a copy, the original is framed at home on my wall. I made a copy, and here it is, and the fortune says, "You will be a fine swimmer and may make the Olympic team." Now, I have a confession to make. I bought this gum a lot, and the year that I got this fortune, I wanted to get this fortune again, so I practically supported the company, and but I didn't get it. Now, going forward to 8 years later, right before the Munich Olympic Games, I got the fortune again. And it says, "You will be a fine swimmer and may make the Olympic team." Again, the original is framed at home with the other original. Now, I still buy the gum when I can find it and come across it, and I'm a lawyer now. I'm a deputy district attorney for LA County, and I'm hoping to get a fortune that will say my next case will land me a big book contract or something to that effect. Now, I wanted to talk about dealing with coaches. My first coach was a female, and female coach at the Abington Dolphins, and this is a local swim team. Now, after 3 years there, I tried out for the Vesper Boat Club swim team. I was 13. Now, for my tryout, I swam practices with Mary Kelly, the A-team coach. Now, Mary Kelly was the sister-in-law of Princess Grace of Monaco, the former actress Grace Kelly. Mary married Jack Kelly Jr., who was Grace's brother, okay? And Mary and Jack were former Olympians. Mary was on the Olympic swimming team. Jack was on the Olympic rowing team. And Jack's father, John B. Kelly Sr., was also an Olympian, and he has this huge rowing statue on the banks of the Schuylkill River. Now, getting back to Mary, the A-team coach, she was trying to figure out where to place me. And I'm swimming in these practices with some of the fastest swimmers in the world, and they were fast. The swim practices were just like actual swimming competitions, and I was awestruck. I was placed on the B team. Now, I told my Abington Dolphins coach that I was resigning to go to Vesper, and she took it personally. And she was very upset. She told me I'm making the wrong decision. She said, why would I want to be a little fish in a big pond when I already was a big fish in a small pond? I just remember how mean she was to me and how unsupportive, and she made a spectacle of me in front of the other my teammates that evening. And the only advantage to staying there was that it was safe, and I wasn't after safe. I wanted to win an Olympic gold medal. So she told me that I would never be welcome back, and I cried that whole way home from practice that evening. Now, the Vesper A team trained at Penn and used Penn's facilities. I and the rest of the B team swam in a pool that was near the Philadelphia Art Museum. It was called the Aquarium. And the water was always cold and always freezing. Now, the aquarium was a pool that was below the ground, and the ceiling was ground level, and the ceiling was made up of these small glass blocks all along the ceiling. Now, the kids would fish in the nearby Schuylkill River. They would break the glass blocks and throw the fish into the pool. So often I would show up at workout with the rest of my teammates, and we would find fish swimming in our pool. So obviously these fish were on the B team too. After I won my first national medal, which was 8th place in the 1,500 meter freestyle, Mary Kelly invited me to train with the A team. Now I got to swim at Waitman Hall Pool. Gimbal Pool hadn't been built yet. I was 15. Now, I was deeply saddened when Mary abruptly retired from coaching me and the rest of the A team, and she retired a few months right before the '68 Olympic trials. And she retired due to a sensitive family event. And Mary was one of the best coaches in the world, and it was really unfortunate that female coaches, nor Mary, were ever among the coaching staff of any of the Olympic teams or the national teams. Now, this is pre-Title IX. Balancing athletics and school at Abington High School, where I went to high school, I met resistance from the school staff because I was trying to juggle my practices with my school schedule. And the teachers were inflexible and they were difficult, and they didn't understand at all the demands of my training. Several times a week in the morning, I would show up well into the 3rd period of classes. So in essence, I missed homeroom. I missed study hall and most of gym. Now, speaking of gym class, my gym teacher was a female, was not very happy about the fact that I was showing up late for her gym class. She gave me a D for my senior year. Can you imagine that? So on my application to Penn, on one line I have senior year gym class D, and then right underneath it, on the next line, I put Olympic gold medalist. How I came to swim at Penn, not being recruited. Okay, my senior year of high school was a watershed year in my life. I was a national champion. I had won 2 Pan American gold medals, and I was also a world record holder. Even with these accomplishments, I got no recruitment phone calls from any college or university, and I got no recruitment letters at all from anybody. Now, 4 months later, I graduated from high school in June of '68, and then 4 months later at the Mexico City Olympic Games, I win a gold, a silver, and 2 bronze Olympic medals. I come home. Still not one phone call from anybody recruiting me, not one letter. So, in November of '68, I applied to Penn for the '69 incoming freshman class. And I remember on my application, I put down the Olympics. I want to backtrack a little bit. Penn was my #1 choice. And why? It's the greatest university in the world. It is. And of course, did I mention my mother attended Penn? So she was very supportive of me going to Penn, and I had a new goal. I wanted to make the next Olympic team. Now, George Breen was my Vesper coach, my current Vesper coach. Remember, Mary had retired. He was also the Penn's men's swim team coach, and I wanted to continue training with George. Now, I go into the Penn interview, okay, and I wrote about the Olympics on my application to Penn, and I remember during the interview, most of the discussion revolved around the Olympics. What was never discussed was me swimming for the women's swim team. In fact, the women's swim team never came up during that interview. And this became a little bit of an issue later. Now, when I was accepted and attending Penn, it was George's decision that I train with the Penn's men's team rather than with Vesper, my club team. He felt I needed to be challenged more in practices and that the Penn's men's swim team was a better vehicle to do that as opposed to me training with Vesper, my club team. Later, I heard that the swim team, women's swim team, wanted me to swim for them. And this is logical, of course, given my background. It made perfect sense. Had I been recruited by Penn, I obviously would have swum for the women's swim team. As it turned out, I did swim in a few of the women's meets. It was on a hit and miss basis, and it was really unfortunate. Now, at Penn, in the workouts with the men's team, I swam faster than half of the men. Later, I took a leave of absence from Penn after my sophomore year, and I trained in Northern California. Mark Spitz was my teammate, and we swam twice a day, 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I'd like to say that I beat Mark in the practices, but there was no way did that ever happen. Mark and I became very good friends, and I became good friends with his sister Nancy, who was also a well-ranked, world-ranked swimmer in her own right. Now, Mark and I made the next Olympic team in '72. I won my 4th Olympic medal. I returned to Penn in January '73 and then graduated in May '74 with 2 bachelor's degrees. Now, my swimming career ended before Title IX was ever effective. In 1996, I was inducted into the Penn Athletic Hall of Fame, and in '97 into the International Swimming Hall of Fame. I held 9 world records, won 7 national championships, and won 4 Olympic medals. The moral of my story that I've been sharing with you is that with a goal in mind, doing whatever it takes, with the proper motivation, and never give up, this can be the result. These are the Olympic medals. Thank you. This is the gold one. But I brought the medals to show you and share with you. Thank you very much. Oh, questions?
Are there any questions for Ellie? Anything about swimming at Penn or competing in the Olympics or any stories you'd like to tell?
Sorry, did you contact the women's swim coach and she wouldn't? Did you have any sort of relationship with her whatsoever?
You know, I didn't even know who the swim coach was, and it was never brought up. And my George had wanted me to train with the men's team, so the women's swim team never came up at all. It was just really interesting, and with the training schedule with the men's team, it was pretty intensive since I was training with them full time.
Was the men's team welcoming to you?
I'm sorry?
Was the men's team welcoming as part of
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I was their mascot. I had a ball. I really had a lot of fun training with the men. I really did. Went to their meets, and And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself. I had the time of my life. Yes?
You still swim regularly today?
You know, I'm going to go back into it, get back into it. I lift weights, and I've gotten away from swimming, and it's so healthy for you, and it's good for your body, and it elongates muscles, and so I am going to go back and swim, just recreationally. So.
I'm wondering what you took from your career as an athlete, as an elite athlete, and applied it to your career now.
Well, I would say setting the goal and doing really whatever it takes. And after the Olympics, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be able to support myself. So applying that, going through law school, sitting for the bar exam, and I've been with the LA County DA's office over, 17 years so far. Just when I'm arguing cases in front of the jury, I think just knowing that you can do it and just keep, you can accomplish anything that you set your mind to. And there's a lot of visualization involved too. That's visualizing the goal, seeing it, feeling it, and then it happens. Yes?
After you won your first Olympic medal, what made you keep wanting to go more and keep wanting to go and win more medals? Like, why weren't you just content, and why didn't you, just be satisfied with what you had, except pushing yourself?
Well, that's a good question. In '68, I made the team in 3 events, and the first medal that I won was the gold medal, and I had 2 more events to swim. And then I got a silver and a bronze medal. Even my parents asked me, why would I want to keep swimming after the '68 Olympics? You're on top, enjoy yourself, have fun, and I just wanted to make another Olympic team. I remember marching in the opening ceremonies, and I remember the thrill of being in the stadium with all these other athletes from who were the best in the world, and I really wanted to march in one more opening ceremonies. I just kept visualizing it, and I just wanted to prove that I could do it again. I just wanted to make 2 Olympic teams. And also the second Olympic team, I was 22, and that was considered over the hill. So I was challenging myself. I knew that I was in uncharted territory, that this was going to be a challenge, and I just wanted to prove that a woman at 22 could do her lifetime best times. And even the press called me Madam Butterfly and the old lady of swimming. But I just wanted to do that and prove that you can still do it. Yes?
How did the events of Munich affect your Olympic experience as an athlete there?
Oh, it was very difficult. All the swimming competition was done before the incident happened, and then the medal winners, myself included, we were giving a swimming exhibition outside of the city. And when we came in, the whole village was on lockdown, and we were sequestered. It was very, very sad. It was tragic.
And you might have to tell the student athletes, they may not know what happened to you.
Oh, have you seen the movie Munich, in the Munich Olympics? Okay, there were athletes who were Israeli athletes who were taken hostage and later murdered. It was very, very sad. And the men's village, we're all in the same village, but the women's dormitory was on one end and the men's dormitory was on the other end, but it wasn't all that far away. It was maybe about a 5-minute walk. And we were sequestered to the women's dormitory. We were not allowed out. The cafeteria was right next door, so we could go there, but that was the extent of our movement. And we were getting all of our news through the German television, so we learned later than everyone else what had happened, the tragedy that had happened, and it was just very, very sad. Yes?
I'm most interested in what was going on in you when you were 9, that you would go back not just twice, but 5 times.
I know, 5.
And then after that, how that transitioned into a passion for something that has been so challenging before.
Oh, that's a good question. I wanted to learn how to swim, and it was really frustrating. It's the truth. On my 5th time, I finally passed this Red Cross swimming lesson. I think what inspired me was the bubblegum fortunes for sure. I knew that this was going to happen. And I got that first bubblegum fortune at 13, and I just knew. I went, oh, this is fate. This is going to happen. I'm going to do this. The other thing was when I was 11, I went to a national swimming championships in Philadelphia with my mother, and I saw all these Olympians, and I was running around under the bleachers getting their autographs, and I was so awestruck. And I knew then and there at that swim meet at 11, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to make the Olympic team, and I want to win an Olympic gold medal. This is what I'm going to do. So.
I think there was a question back there.
I'm curious, you were, obviously, most of your swimming was done, your medals was done before Title IX, but you were still involved at the Olympic level past Title at 73, right? And I was wondering if you saw at that period a change, what changes you saw or observed?
I think Marcia would be better to answer that, or maybe Steve Bilski.
I just meant personally that you happen to observe or feel within the field of swimming, for example, right?
You know, in a way I was removed from it because I got involved with the Olympic Committee and several of the committees, and it was more from an administrative point of view. I wasn't really... all I know is that my niece, who I'm very, very proud of, won a scholarship for soccer to a small private university in Pennsylvania, so she benefited from Title IX, and all of this it's fantastic to see all of you here, and you were recruited, and what a wonderful, it's just a wonderful thing. So I know about it before Title IX, and then...
Anybody else? All right, Ellie will be around afterwards if anybody wants to ask any other questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay. Jan, would you like to come up?
Hi, I'm Jan Bernstein. I tried to get around to meet many of you today, and it's fantastic having you here. And it's fantastic that the TCPW is sponsoring an event spotlighting women's athletics and Title IX. So I think we owe a big round of applause to the Trustee Council for doing this. It's great. I am privileged and honored to be able to talk about Marcia Greenberger. And a lot of you probably don't know her, but I'm telling you that every one of you at the end of this are going to understand that she is somebody you want to thank. Because you are here today, not exclusively, Marcia will say it's not all me, but you know what? A lot of it is her. And a lot of it is what she has done over the last 35 years, and that is why a lot of you are here today. Period, end of story. There's no argument, Marcia. That's the reason. And I want to say also, pushy lawyers, I want to say also that we're very privileged to have Marcia's mother here and her sister here for today's event. Let's give them a nice welcome. And I also would just like to thank very much, and I hope you all noticed many of the women's trophies that were around the different tables here today, and the athletic department really went above and beyond in loaning them to us, and I thought they were spectacular to see. And also the photos. I want to thank the archives and Mark Fraser Lloyd, who went way out of his way to produce those for us on very short notice. And I think it really, at least it gave me a great sense of where we've been, where we are, and Marcia's going to tell us where we're going. And thanks to people like Marcia, there is a very strong future for women's athletics ahead of all of us. Now, turning to my task at hand, I was asked to fit into a short introduction over 35 years of work that have literally changed the lives of every woman and girl in America. No problem, I'm a fast talker. So, Marcia Greenberger has been described by the New York Times as guiding the battles of the women's rights movement. Working Woman magazine recognized Marcia as one of the 25 heroines whose activities over 25 years have helped women in the workplace. Washington magazine called her one of Washington, D.C.'s most powerful women. She is the founder and co-president of the National Women's Law Center. She did that 35 years ago, which was the first full-time women's rights legal advocate in Washington, D.C. She is a recognized expert on sex discrimination in the law. She's been a leader in the development of key legislative initiatives and litigation protecting women's rights. She has received numerous awards and accolades, including the Alumni Award of Merit from the Penn Law School in 2001. She's received honorary degrees. She has received she was elected, I thought this was very special, elected to the Court of Honor of the Philadelphia High School for Girls in 2006. She received an award from the National Family Planning and Reproductive Health Association in 2005. She received a Woman of Genius Award, a Woman of Distinction Award, the Woman Lawyer of the Year Award by the DC Bar Association. Is there any woman award that Marcia Greenberger has not won? And she deserved every one of them. Now, an initial search, I asked my library at my firm to do an initial search on Marcia. Maybe you could give me some inspiration on how to describe Marcia. And my librarian came up white, saying, okay, here it is. And she printed out, there were 50 US Supreme Court and High Court cases that Marcia was involved in protecting women's rights. There was 43 statements to Congress that Marcia had made on issues ranging from Supreme Court nominees to attempted rollbacks of Title IX. Marcia has been involved in precedent-setting US Supreme Court decisions. I want to just bring your attention to two of them. One is Jackson versus Birmingham Board of Education, which is a 2005 US Supreme Court decision. Marcia was counsel on that case, where Justice O'Connor decided that retaliation against a person because that person had complained of sex discrimination is a form of intentional sex discrimination encompassed by Title IX. That is a huge civil rights victory. The second case is Davis versus Monroe County, which is another US Supreme Court case, 1999. There, a parent of a 5th grader sued the school and its officials under Title IX for failure to remedy a classmate's sexual harassment of the student. Justice O'Connor held there that a private damages action could be brought against a school board under Title IX in cases of student-on-student harassment under certain circumstances. This is another very important victory, allowing people to bring these kinds of damages claims to help enforce the promise of Title IX and its prohibition against discrimination based on sex. Now, in a statement by Marcia in 2004 on action needed to remove barriers to advancement of women and people of color in math, science, and engineering, she noted that the center she founded in Title IX were launched in the same year, 1972. Since then, Marcia has seen to it that the center has devoted much of its resources over the last 35 years to ensuring that the law's promise of equal opportunity in education becomes a reality for all women and girls in this country. She noted the still stunning minority of women and people of color teaching math, science, and engineering in the nation's leading universities. And that's 35 years after Title IX. She quoted reports showing serious violations of anti-discrimination laws. And as only Marcia could so articulately put it, she said, "This is simply unacceptable for the female students and teachers who are deprived of the full range of educational and employment opportunities, and for the country that is cheated of their talents." And of course, Marcia has been a zealous advocate for Title IX's promise of equal opportunity for girls and women in athletics. Let me give you just a glimpse into the difference that Marcia and the work of her center have made for girls and women in athletics. Female participation in intercollegiate athletics has increased 400% in the last 30 years because of Title IX. Female participation in high school has increased by 800% since the passage of Title IX. That is a revolution. In high school in 1971, there were 294,000 participants. In the year 2000, there was over 2,700,000 girls playing sports in high school. That is Title IX. That is what Marcia has worked so hard to protect. That is a social revolution. Now, what we see is that in the 1971-72 Poor Richard's Almanac, which is the university yearbook, and I thank Mike Murphy at Sports Info for helping me with this, the year Title IX was passed, there were 6 pages devoted to women's athletics, 1 of text, 5 of photos. By comparison, football alone had 9 pages. Men's soccer alone had 10 pages. Men's basketball alone had 10 pages. We've come a long way. You heard Mary talk about all the championships that you all have won. Well, over the years, Penn women have won over 53 Ivy, regional, and national titles. And that is quite something because, look, the NCAA didn't even provide for national championships for women until 1981. 81! That is not a long time ago. And a lot of these teams haven't even been varsity teams, full varsity teams for that long. So this number of championships that you all have created, and all of you TCPW members who were athletes before that, is quite an achievement. Now we know, despite the great progress, Title IX has come under attack. Athletes must be savers, because I saved a Tank McNamara cartoon from the 80s. And that shows a man speaking at a podium at a meeting of the, quote, Morality in Sports, Inc. And he's standing at the podium and he's saying, we're recommending that President Reagan scrap Title IX, which requires equal funding of men's and women's athletic programs. What's the point, he says? Girls will just end up being mommies. Meanwhile, some deserving guy could use that money to put bread on the training table. The next frame has a question from the audience. So Title IX is anti-family? The speaker says, definitely. So you see how Title IX has been interwoven into the social revolution over the past 35 years. Look at Don Imus. Look at the attacks that strong women athletes are still coming under today. Title IX was under direct attack in 2003, 4, and 5 by the Commission on Opportunity and Athletics. Marcia was quoted saying, "The threats to Title IX in women's sports are huge. We could be facing a whole new ballgame where schools are deemed to be in compliance with Title IX by the Department of Education, even when they fall far short of equal opportunity. Taking away or changing Title IX policies," said Marcia, "would be outrageous and insulting to women and girls and the fathers and brothers who care about them." Absolutely right. In a comment Marcia made on leadership, she said, "It's not the smartest or most savvy, it's the most committed that succeed." And we all have been the beneficiaries of Marcia's commitment. To show Marcia the difference her commitment has made to them, several of the women student athletes here today have offered me a brief quote on the importance of their athletic experience in their lives. With their permission, I've chosen only 3, unfortunately, in the interest of time, but I thank each and every one of you athletes who've given me your thoughts. The first I'd like to share with you is Jessie Carlin, track. There she is. All right, Jessie. She says, "Being an athlete at Penn has given me the confidence to take on leadership roles not only out on the track, but also in the classroom and at work. Just knowing that I have the support and backing from an amazing group of women is motivation enough to strive to the top. And if I should slip up or fail, I know my team will be there to help out, or at least help me de-stress with a long run and a good lift." Thank you. The next I'd like to share with you is Monica Naltner, basketball. Is she here? Monica says, "Being a student athlete at Penn has been a wonderful, challenging, and most of all, a rewarding experience. After 4 years of competition, both on the court and in the classroom, I look back on my career at Penn and consider it an honor and a privilege to have played in the historic Palestra, to have worn the red and blue jersey, and ultimately to graduate with a Wharton degree. I know that what I have accomplished here at Penn through hard work and dedication will prepare me for what lies ahead in my future endeavors. I will cherish the memories I made here at Penn, which have only been enhanced by being a student athlete. Thank you for that. The last quote that I'd like to share with you is from Meredith Damore. Damore? Yes, here? Volleyball. I went up to talk to the volleyball gals. It's like, hi, how are you? Meredith says, being a Penn athlete was really the center of my college experience, from helping me establish an immediate friend base and social circle to teaching me leadership skills and teamwork. I value my experience as a Penn athlete in really making me the person that I am today. Most importantly, it has allowed me to see new places and create friendships that I will have for the rest of my life. Additionally, I've learned about myself, my strengths and weaknesses, the way I react to adversity, the joy in being an Ivy League champion and NCAA participant, and how to deal with challenges that I face in the future. I have been so proud to wear the red and blue for 4 years, because although it didn't define who I was for my college career, it undoubtedly shaped who I am today. Those are great words. Thank you all very much. Marcia, I too have been a direct beneficiary of your commitment, passion, and compassion. As a high school tennis player in the 70s, who was told by the Board of Education that tennis balls were too expensive and that's why they couldn't have a girls' tennis team. Yeah, they didn't have any girls' teams, but we took care of that. As an intercollegiate athlete at Penn, who saw the beginnings of change for women athletes in equipment, practice time, uniforms, coaches, and match play, and especially as a postgraduate advocate for gender equity in athletics. You gave me your time, your sage advice, and most importantly, your warm, undying support. I will never forget that. I will never forget that, because here's Marcia Greenberger giving me a hug and helping me out with my little things about how we help women athletes at Penn, and then the next day she's probably testifying in Congress. You know, this is who you have in front of you. For your heart, Marcia, warmth, strength, and undying commitment to women's issues, the Trustees Council of Penn Women presents to you its Beacon Award. To read the award to you, and actually my eyes being as they are, I'm going to read it from here. The Beacon Award cites Title IX. It says, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. On the 20th anniversary of the Trustees Council of Penn Women and the 35th anniversary of the passage of Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, TCPW takes great pride in awarding our highest honor, the Beacon Award, to our member Marcia Greenberger in recognition of your efforts to bring equality to American women and girls. You have been the catalyst behind changes affecting women and a guiding force in the women's rights movement. Since founding what would become the National Women's Law Center in 1972, you have devoted yourself to protecting women's rights, particularly in the areas of education, employment, health, and reproductive rights. You exemplify courage, fortitude, and perseverance. You are truly a woman who has made a difference, and we are proud to call you one of our own. With gratitude for everything you have done for us, our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters, we present you with the Trustees Council of Penn Women Beacon Award. And I would like to note that there is a charitable contribution that the Trustees Council provides with this Beacon Award, which is a $2,000 charitable contribution. And Marcia has asked that the contribution be made to the National Women's Law Center Foundation, because there is currently a Ford Foundation 2-to-1 match. So the TCPW $2,000 will be a $6,000 contribution to the center's endowment, and that's fantastic. Marcia.
Well, I have tears in my eyes. I have to say, Jen, what an extraordinary and wonderful introduction. And there's the old joke about, I wish my father were here. This part is not the joke, I wish he were, but that he would have loved it. And fortunately, my mother is here who believed it. So, and my sister, thank you for a truly generous and terrific introduction. And needless to say, I am so very honored and so very grateful to be here. What a wonderful event to see all of you and to get such an extraordinary award. Imagine how I feel about that. You know, Penn honestly has meant everything to me. I was an undergrad here, and as an undergraduate, it really opened my eyes and expanded my horizons to so many issues and so many things. I went to law school, which never would have crossed my mind had I not been an undergraduate here. And the law school gave me the most gratifying of work over very many years now. And not to put too fine a point on it, my husband too, who I met. We were in the same law school class. I have one daughter who went to Penn undergrad, and one daughter who went to the law school. So we are very much a Penn family, literally, figuratively, in every way. Like so many others, I suspect, in this room, I know that's certainly very true for the Trustees Council of Penn Women, and it was and has been a complete pleasure to be a member of the Trustees Council. You know, there are so many connections over the years that have made Penn such a great university. I know from my daughters, who have been here certainly a lot more recently than I as students. And just coincidentally, last night, I went and spoke to a women's law group at the law school. And it was just a room filled. They had their annual dinner last night with fabulous young women who were studying law, and faculty there to support them, and alums who had come back to be part of the dinner. And it just so epitomized to me what is wonderful about this event too, the ever-widening circles, the support of coaches, faculty, fabulous students with such extraordinary futures, and alums with a connection to Penn who come back and feel that sense of both gratitude and the promise for the future. Well, it's so over the top to get this award, as is obvious from what I've just said. It's more than honestly I can say and explain, given what the Trustees Council for Penn Women means. So many women leaders who have come back to Penn. And really, when you think about it, the mission of the Trustees Council of Penn Women is so in sync with the National Women's Law Center and all we've been working for, that the connections couldn't be closer in a personal way for me, or in a way as a matter of principle. As you heard, and I don't have a whole lot left to say since Jan pretty much covered the waterfront, the center works on a range of issues from women's health to family economic security issues, of social safety net problems, from child care to social security, employment options, educational equity, had to be a central part of what we do. We were founded in 1972, as you've now heard, the very year Title IX was passed. And education and educational opportunities, they are the gateway, we all know that, to a fulfilled life and to a fulfilling life. Well, we know how many issues there are still to work on with respect to women's educational opportunities and whether it is still expanding more women's opportunities in math and science and engineering, where we as a country have so much more work to do. It used to be in the old days, I could have listed law and medicine, and certainly the law schools now with half women law students, very different from my old days, and so we sure know and can measure the progress in law, in medicine, and business too. But we also know that with all the progress and with all the doors that have been opened, that there still is so much more to do. And to me, nothing epitomizes both the importance of that progress and where the future lies than athletics. And that's why the fact that we're zeroing in on Title IX's anniversary in the context of athletics seems so especially fitting. It wasn't so long ago, as was pointed out with Ellie, with her just incredible story of perseverance and strength and skill and talent, and from Jan's descriptions too, that people had a very different set of expectations about women's capacity, what women should be doing, what resources were worth investing in women, what was expected of them. And when I first started working on women's rights, and in many ways it can seem like the dark ages, and I was, I think, shocking some of the volleyball players I was talking to earlier when I was describing some of the other rules that were in place when I was at Penn, including, I think one of the things that really got them the most was that you had to wear skirts to class every day and skirts to dinner in the dorm every night. And it wasn't until either my junior or senior year that you were allowed to wear pants to the library on Sunday. And there are lots more of those things. But as shocking as some of that may seem, and with my 40th anniversary coming up, there were other parts that one of my actually the first woman president of there used to be a separate women's student association and a separate men's student association. And it was my class at Penn that had the first joint student association of men and women with a woman president. She's now the executive director of the New York City Bar. And in preparation for our 40th reunion, she pulled out our yearbook, and it had a section on sort of promising students in the future, not one woman listed in that yearbook. Well, there are a lot of promising women, as it turned out, and we'd never see a yearbook like that. We know it coming from Penn today. But I bring up these very ancient stories to tell you, as long ago as it may seem, and as old as I'm having to confront the fact that I may seem, actually people of my generation and my age are pretty much in charge of a lot of institutions around the country today. And so they, like me, grew up with those expectations. And I finished law school. Went all the way through school, all the way through college, all the way through law school without Title IX. And when I graduated from law school, the newspapers still had want ads that were listed, jobs for women, jobs for men. That was what people who are running institutions today grew up expecting through all of their education. So when Jan talks about a revolution, we really have seen an incredible revolution. And having you all in this room, it does bring tears to everybody's eyes, I know. But it's not so surprising that every battle hasn't yet been won, and that we still have a way to go. And I just wanted to give you some statistics about what the current picture is for women in athletics in the country now in 2007, 35 years after Title IX was passed. And somebody asked a question of Ellie about, well, did she see an immediate difference after Title IX was passed in 1972? Well, you know, it was passed in the summer of '72. It took until 1975 before the government issued what are called interpretive regulations to describe what these simple words of not discriminating on the basis of sex meant. And with respect to intercollegiate athletics or athletics, could you still have separate men's and women's teams, for example? Which obviously the answer was yes. But working out all these details took a government official agency to flesh out those details, and the government took the position that until those regulations were issued, they weren't going to enforce the law. And actually, the first case I ever was involved in was a lawsuit against what was then the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, because they never were issuing these regulations. And 3 years were going by, and nothing was going on in Title IX. And guess what it was that was holding up all the regulations? The lobbying of football coaches who said, this is going to mean the end of football in this country. And they went to Congress to try to get Title IX amended to take out, quote unquote, revenue-producing sports. And in those days, obviously, there were hardly any women's sports at all, let alone revenue-producing sports. So there was going to be, the idea was, there's women's sports, there's men's sports, then there's football and basketball. That somehow doesn't have anything to do with women's sports. Let's just take them out of the equation altogether. And year after year, a coalition grew up to fight to keep Title IX from being amended. We ended up in court. Lawsuits being brought starting in the 70s, challenging Title IX, saying it was reverse discrimination, it was unconstitutional, it was inappropriate, it was never supposed to be covered. And all the way through the country, every one of those lawsuits was lost, and the courts reaffirmed Title IX and its strength and its interpretation. And I will tell you, though, that those legal battles, as the courts have been changing, have really started to heat up again. And now it's not men's basketball and football, because needless to say, they have continued to thrive, in case you haven't noticed. But there is a crunch, as everybody knows, with resources with athletics. And there was, in a case we just won in Michigan, that the National Women's Law Center was involved in, where Michigan, this was in a high school context, asked the Supreme Court to review the case, and just literally last week, the Supreme Court refused to hear the case. And Jan told you about the key role with Sandra Day O'Connor. We've won a number of those cases 5-4 with her vote. So we were holding our breath that with a new Supreme Court, that we won't be losing those gains that we won over all these decades. And I will tell you that while there have been times when we haven't always won, and actually there was one case in the 80s where the scope of Title IX generally was interpreted by the Supreme Court so narrowly that it excluded intercollegiate athletics altogether. And so for a 4-year period in the 80s, there was no intercollegiate athletic coverage by Title IX. It took 4 years to get Title IX repassed, along with other civil rights laws prohibiting discrimination on the basis of race, age, national origin, disability. All laws structured the same way. And basically, at that point, the president, then was President Reagan, was vetoing the law, and it took 2/3 majority of the House and the Senate to repass what was called the Civil Rights Restoration Act. And what was one of the key reasons for its support in Congress? Intercollegiate athletics. And I will tell you, one of the best memories I have is going around with elite athletes, star athletes, to some of these senators and members of the House offices where they were beside themselves. And I got to go lobby with Billie Jean King. And these guys did not want to talk about Title IX. What they wanted was for her to show their grip, the tennis grip, and give them a little bit of advice about what to do to get their game to be better. So, in truth, women's athletics has come to be a source of so much pride in this country. And in the early days, we used to have call-in radio shows where people would yell and scream, "What are you doing?" Because women shouldn't be athletes. First of all, it's going to injure them. They'll never be able to have children. They won't be fertile. It's not this, it's not that. It's unhealthy. I mean, now there are studies that show that women athletes, obviously, are leaders. More successful business women leaders have been athletes, a much higher percentage than haven't. Studies that are now demonstrating lifelong health benefits for women athletes, lower breast cancer rates, lower osteoporosis rates. The skills that Ellie described of learning how not just to win, which is a pretty good lesson, but not that hard to learn, but learning how to lose and keep going back. The teammate lessons, the leadership lessons, the experience of not only cheering for somebody else, but you being the center of attention and people cheering for you. Those were things that women didn't used to have. And now we, as a country, can cheer and be so proud of your exploits and accomplishments and talents and skills, to say nothing of the fact that it could be a pretty gratifying career, as I suspect the coaches in this room can tell you, and the administrators, to work in the area of sport and to coach yourselves and to have this background. It opens up all kinds of opportunities in the future. So there's nothing that is either more practically important for young women or, in a certain sense, more symbolically important for women as a whole, whatever their talents or skills or interests, than to see women athletes shine, to see your leadership, to see your strength, to see your skills. And I have to tell you, when Jan mentioned Rutgers and Don Imus, that maybe there's some silver lining, because really, I was at the Final Four, actually. And there was, because it's Title IX, its 35th anniversary, Case Western Reserve, because the Final Four was in Cleveland, had a big conference around Title IX, and I was there, as was Billie Jean King, among others. And in fact, I was even staying in the same hotel where the Ivy women basketball coaches were meeting. So I was looking around to see. I wasn't sure I would know who the Penn basketball coach was, but hoping that maybe I would be able to connect. But in any event, that silver lining to me is that we haven't seen the media and the attention that women athletes deserve. And this really did shine a spotlight on what athletics and accomplishment and grace and skill and character and guts and heart are all about, both with their coach, Vivian Stringer, who herself is extraordinary, and that amazing team. So these are your skills, your talents, I will say to all of the athletes in this room. I couldn't be prouder to accept this award. I couldn't be prouder to be part of the Trustees Council of Penn Women, and I look forward to hearing about all the women athletes and your accomplishments over many years to come. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Marcia. We have time for just one or two quick questions before we let all the athletes go to eat a healthy dinner, maybe go work out, do some homework. Anybody have any questions for Marcia? The Trustees Council, we're all going to have dinner together, so we'll have a chance to ask Marcia questions ourselves. But if any of the athletes wants to ask any questions about Title IX, go ahead.
Just a general question. Most of our athletic careers are going to be ending upon graduation. So how do you see the role of professional women athletes progressing in the future? How do you see professional leagues moving towards accepting women as professional athletes?
Now there's a hard one. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. We've seen ebbs and flows, certainly with professional women's basketball in this country, which is a mighty tough road to hoe. Actually, the head of the the WNBA was a Penn Law grad for many years. It's tough. Certainly the salaries are nothing like what they are for male athletes, and in fact, there's often a future abroad that is more remunerative than there is in this country, and a professional women's soccer league didn't quite make it, but I'm sure it will come back, and I'm sure over time it will improve, and there's a lot, honestly, of concern about women coaches and women athletic directors and the future for women in generally. But time has to be on our side, and the future has to ultimately, I think, be there for women athletes, even though I think we're still in this transition phase of a lot of extraordinary movement and progress beyond question, but still, to make that leap, to make this a professional set of opportunities be what we'd like it to be, there's still a lot of distance to go.
And Marcia, one thing you might want to mention is that there are careers for student athletes that may not be on the field. Remember that out there, for all of you, there are an awful lot of women's athletics initiatives, whether it's in the SID office, as a coach, as a journalist, there are opportunities out there, even if they're not on the playing field.
Well, that is really true, and certainly in journalism. I mean, Christine Brennan, as an example of somebody who was an athlete and covers women's sports now, and there are many more. Well, even on TV, you see a lot of women who are sportscasters, covering sports, covering men's sports, most definitely, and. The old locker room issues behind us now, of women being able to somehow or other, get into men's locker rooms and be able to cover those sports teams. So it's, I think the future is most definitely there. And when I mentioned that part of the importance of providing athletic opportunities for women is because there are a lot of jobs in all kinds of ways in this field that I think it takes determination and, sort of pushing some doors down still. But I think, as I said, I think the future is on our side, and there are many, many marketing jobs and, just the sports complex of the Nikes of the world, and how many women athletes there are who are working in those kind sports corporations. And I don't know if many of you know the catalog Title IX that is actually started by a Yale woman athlete, and selling sports gear basically for women. It's based in California, and she called it Title IX, and she was part of the set of early athletes in the Ivies. So I think just when you look at Nike and who their advertising is geared towards, and their Just Do It campaigns, I mean, there are women behind those corporations, those products, just many, many different fields.
Okay, we'll take 1 and 2. And then we'll
Right now, we're all reaping the benefits from Title IX and so forth, but I don't always feel like we give enough back. So for right now, like, what can we as Penn students and athletes, most importantly, do for our communities and our sports to benefit Title IX?
Well, that's a fabulous question, and I think there are an awful lot of things you could do. First of all, of course, a lot of it depends on your own individual interests, but you could, in your communities, go back, talk to little girls about being an athlete in your neighborhoods, in your schools, in your leagues. You guys are superstars in your communities, in your schools, and I can't imagine how excited people would be, and probably people in your schools have never thought that you could come and speak to an assembly or a club. And during some of the fights around Title IX, and we had some of the club and camp girls programs come and fill up the hearing room and go with us, and they were so excited themselves about doing it, and of course they're so adorable to start with, and who couldn't be supportive of women's sports? But I think for those girls to get to hear your stories would be absolutely spectacular. I think seeing what's going on at Penn, and we'll hear more about it, but Penn is part of this world, and we haven't really gotten all the way to where we need to be. And while I don't know the details about what is here, I would suspect it would be a pretty unique university if all the issues were resolved. So I think in a constructive way, looking at what's going on right here would be good. And there is a national battle going on. I didn't mention a key thing, but now it's almost going to be 2 years ago during a spring break, I guess a little more than 2 years ago, during a spring break on a late Friday afternoon, the administration issued a very damaging, weakening interpretation of those Title IX regulations that I described. And to its credit, the NCAA sent letters around to all the member schools saying that the NCAA did not think that weakening was appropriate and thought the schools should not be taking advantage of it. And so I think for those of you who are willing to be advocates and get involved in what's going on with public policy, there are many ways, incredible ways, that you could be involved in speaking out and telling your story. And honestly, if that is of interest to any of you, I'll tell you what our website is, nwlc.org. And we could give you action alerts on what's going on with Title IX. And there could be rallies sending letters to your representatives, telling them how you feel about Title IX, a lot of ways to get involved in the national scene too. So from going back to your playgrounds, to coming to the halls of Congress, to speaking out publicly. I mean, you saw what happened when those Rutgers team members spoke out. It just had the most dramatic impact. There is nothing more effective than hearing from women athletes.
I think we have one more last question.
It sort of ties into the last question, but I just noticed that I think for a lot of us in our generation, there isn't a day-to-day awareness of maybe the differences. There definitely is when you sit down and think about it, but maybe not day-to-day, we're not cognizant of some of the issues that you've been, that everyone here has been addressing. And I was just wondering if you feel that that's an awareness that you grow into, or if maybe the attitudes are changing as a result of some of the work that's already been done, and how does that affect the future of Title IX issues?
Yeah, well, I have to say, there's always this feeling of, oh, do these young women know, how hard the fight was? Do they know they shouldn't be taking this for granted? But then on the other side, it is, you should take it for granted. This is the way the world's supposed to be. But the real worry, of course, is that there still are forces trying. There are always, this is the way history works, forces to try to turn back the clock, and we haven't gotten all of the way yet, and so we need you all out there to fight. And I do think that as you go on and as you have more experiences and as you begin to see more, you will see that, what some of the issues are. And so more awareness comes with more experience. But I also think that it's all too easy not to know about what's going on because everybody's busy. You have incredible schedules. You got a full life, and we know that. And so it takes some time and some effort to get up to speed about what these issues are. And frankly, I would love people's ideas about how to, in a way, in these days where there's so much information overload, but we're struggling now, how do we communicate best with all of you in ways that could inform you about what's going on, in ways, where you get your information and how to do it in a way that you can relate to, get, quickly move on, understand, and how best to incorporate your interest in working with us, because that's what we really, really need, not only so we don't lose ground, but that we get where we really want to be ultimately.
Thank you so much. Thank you all, to Marcia, to Ellie, to Jan, to Mary, to Leslie, and to Terry Welsh, who organized this all, to the athletes and coaches who are here, to the athletes and coaches who are out practicing and getting ready for competitions this weekend. Good luck to you in all of your competitions, your games, your practices, your careers. We're here to support you. Go for the red and the blue. And I just want to show you all our 20th anniversary sweatshirt, which we're giving out here to all our members and to our speakers, with our logo that you see up here, and TCPW, Women Making a Difference. So thanks for coming. This is for you. Okay. We're going to all adjourn to dinner now, and good luck to everyone. Take care.